When I was a kid, I watched something that made me believe, that made me want to be special, that made me want to do something great in this world, to go beyond my home and see what was out there, to venture into unknown territories, to meet incredible people, and test myself in a way I had never done before. But then I grew older. I looked back and realized that what made me love this imaginary world came from so many others. It breathed westerns, it breathed samurai films, it breathed World War II films, it breathed history, it breathed cinema. It wasn't a world that had established rules, it was every form of art put into one, and constantly tried new things, experiment new ideas, and provide the purest form of entertainment, without ever forgetting its themes and ideals. But then with time, that aspect got forgotten. What was once special became the norm. What once came from one mind now was being replicated in so many other films, in so many other stories, and then it was replicated in its own franchise. Messy plots, disorganized trilogies, overabundance of fan service. Star Wars wasn't new anymore. It wasn't special anymore. It became the very thing it swore to destroy. I had lost my faith, my hope. Star Wars wasn't what I wanted it to be. Maybe I was being selfish, but I knew what I wanted from this space opera. I thought it was never going to happen. Until... I remember back in the day watching so many samurai films, especially ones that came from Akira Kurosawa, and the more I watched his films, the more he became my favorite filmmaker of all time. Because I absolutely adore how he is able to convey the themes and ideas through the plot and characters that he creates, through his camera work, through his complex characters, but most of all, how grounded everything was. Something that really blew me away was the story of Seven Samurai. It's not my favorite Kurosawa film, it's not even my favorite samurai film, but something that was regarded as one of the best films of all time, one that was considered as a true epic with some of the biggest battles ever captured in cinema, was in actuality such a small story. It was all about protecting a village that are in danger of their crops being stolen by bandits. That's it. But what really captivated me was how there wasn't really good or bad. It showed all of humans' traits: ego, fear, selfishness, greed, empathy, or rather lack thereof. And so, when the film ends, I was just thinking about life. That's when I began to think about how all of these films influenced the biggest franchise ever made. That's when I realized that Star Wars wasn't just 3 or even 6 films. It wasn't just about Jedis wielding lightsabers to overcome the baddies. It wasn't about space adventures. It wasn't about epic tales. But most of all, it wasn't escapism. Star Wars was cinema. It's about continuously looking back at what had been done and then making it your own, all the while placing us in the characters' shoes, making us connect with them, making us vulnerable, so that we feel what they are feeling. And so I was imagining these films, but in Star Wars form. What if we had a story that was about a rogue samurai protecting a village, or a protagonist that ended up succumbing to the dark side and that's how it ended, or showcasing new aspects of the lore that enhanced the development of each character, and how all of these made us think, that raised more questions than answers. Not questions about who is whose father or daughter, but questions about who is right or wrong, or is there even a right or wrong, and doing so through incredible visuals. Unfortunately, there was only one film that was able to do that for me during the Disney Star Wars era. I felt like it was a step in the right direction, but many people felt differently. And in a twisted turn of events, I lost hope. I felt like Star Wars was never going to be what I wanted it to be. And then came Star Wars Visions. These 9 shorts, produced by numerous Japanese animation studios, did exactly what I wanted. It wasn't just referencing Star Wars of old, it was inspired by their own culture. Let's take the Duel for instance, the way it beautifully conveys the imagery through black and white, as if it's a typical Kurosawa film, not just in its visuals, but also having a rogue character stumble upon a small village and forcibly intervene in what's going on. Even the shot compositions were the same, and this just filled me with joy, because this is what George Lucas did in the original trilogy, and this is what was being done here. One of the aspects I loved the most about this animated short was the fact that it wasn't 100% black and white. It wasn't just to be respectful to what came before, but rather it served a narrative purpose, because the only colors we could see were the ones that came from light sources from buildings, from blasters, but most of all from lightsabers. And just a simple visual cue lets us know that the protagonist isn't who we thought he was. He didn't wield a blue or green lightsaber, he wielded a red one. Who was he? Did he used to be a Sith? What sort of backstory does he have? It was a moment that made me really appreciate what this animated short was trying to do. It told us that this character had a complex life, one full of bad decisions, and now was seemingly trying to do the right thing. Just like we had seen with Toshiro Mifune's character in Kurosawa's Yojimbo and its sequel Sanjuro, but was able to tell us everything through the very minor use of color. And this wasn't the only short to do something like this. With the Ninth Jedi, it goes even further with this idea, by having the color of the lightsaber be directly influenced by the good or bad nature of a character. You could tell exactly who they were or the promise they had, and thus comes as a massive shock when we find out that most of the remaining Jedi weren't Jedi at all, but rather they were Sith all along. Even more brilliant is the development of the protagonist. In the beginning, she wasn't able to produce any type of color with her lightsaber, showcasing that she hadn't yet developed the power she truly possessed. But then, through the events that she suffered throughout the episode, she's then able to tune in into her Jedi self. And thus, her lightsaber eventually turns green. A moment where we understand that she has grown. A moment that makes us connect even more with her. And this is all done without dialogue. It's the perfect use of one of the major aspects of cinematic storytelling. Show, don't tell. And these shorts are full of this. The power of music and how it resonates with people. The exploration of things we had never seen before to convey something meaningful between two characters. The idea that a droid can be whatever it wants to be. The concept of time and how it affects each and every one of us. The family that isn't forced upon us, but rather ones that we choose to have. And last, but certainly not least, how sometimes we don't have control over what happens in our lives. All of these 9 shorts express so many things that just made me think more and more. One of my favorite moments is how it conveys one of the most visually stunning battles without showing it, in the shorts titled The Village Bride. Not only is this one of the most emotional episodes thanks to its story and Kevin Penkin's amazing soundtrack, but also it just beautifully encompasses what I love about cinema, that something can be more impactful if you don't show it, or rather, how you show it. When we have the Jedi prepare herself to fight against the antagonist, with a wide shot that moves slightly from her to him, focusing ever so slightly on her feet, on her face, and then black. We just hear the sound of a lightsaber cutting something, and then a hand with a gun pops up on the floor. It reminded me of so many moments shown in other samurai films, especially one found at the end of Sanjuro, where the battle is just 2 samurais fiercely looking at each other, until with one swift movement, one reaches the other first, with blood pouring out from one of the characters. It was just one shot, just one movement, and it's been burnt in my mind ever since. And The Village Bride reminded me of that one moment with its execution, but instead of showing blood, we don't even see it, thus making the moment just as impactful. But these shorts weren't just referencing or reminding me of cinema, it was also doing it with the world of animation. The abundance of so many aspects that we can dissect in each moment, in each frame. Thanks to all of these incredible studios, the way they convey each story through its incredible visuals and heartfelt emotions. I connected with every character, with every protagonist, as complex as they may be, telling small stories and massively influenced by their own culture, which perfectly added to the enormous world that I believe Star Wars to be. My only gripe was that each short didn't seem to take risks narratively, and whilst there were many moments for that, none of the characters that we were rooting for suffered major consequences. None of them really pushed the envelope from a story perspective. And that's absolutely fine. It's a start, it showed promise, and most of all, it made me care. However, I wanted more. I wanted my heart ripped out. I wanted to yell, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. Until the last short. The one titled Akakiri. It was here where everything that I didn't want to happen, happened. The idea that there are things out of our control. The notion that no matter what we do, we will succumb to our darkest fears and are powerless to change the inevitable. It's a concept already presented to us in Revenge of the Sith, but here I feel is done even better because it's the protagonist that kills the person he cares for the most and has no choice but to do whatever it takes to save her, thus resulting him in stepping into the dark side. It's such a horrifying ending, one that left me speechless, one that made me yearn for a different ending. One that didn't provide me pain. But pain is what I was facing and feeling. And now I wanted even more. I wanted all of these short stories fleshed out. I wanted to get to know the rogue warrior better. I wanted to see the twins' story and relationship develop even more. I wanted to see the Ninth Jedi do whatever it takes to save the Sabersmith. I wanted to see Lop try and save her sister. It's what I had always wanted from this world. It's what I needed. No, this wasn't Star Wars Visions. This was Star Wars. Whether from cinema, animation, or another art form, I want to see even more references outside this imaginary world. I wanted to continue to breathe what the original films have always done. I thought I was never going to get this. I thought it was impossible for this to happen after everything we had been getting the past few years. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was a future for a Star Wars that I envisioned. Because the truth is, Star Wars doesn't need to be one thing. It can be anything. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't need to constantly have epic action sequences or fan service or show us what we've already seen in the past. It can certainly be that if you want, but it can also be so much more. It can be creative. It can do new things. It can explore new worlds, just like the original films did. And now, for the first time in a very long time, I feel like there's something in the horizon, something to look forward to, one that I believe to be a new hope. Thank you for watching my video. Talking about Star Wars, cinema and anime gave me so much joy, so I hope you had just as much of a blast watching this video as I had making it. And it won't stop here. I want to thank all of my patrons for supporting me thus far. I can't believe we've already reached 10 patrons, but we still need more of you. And thus, if you want to see more content like this, I would be forever grateful if you could support with any amount you can. It would also mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit that like button. And while you're here, why not check out some of the other videos I've made so far. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.